watch and burn.
Hey everybody, so today I am going to be discussing Ian McEwan's first book, and this is 1975's First Love, Last Rites. This is a collection of short stories that, in a word, if I had to pick a word that best describes this booked, Jesus, you'd think I'd learn how to speak. But if I had to pick a word, I'd say the word fucked comes to mind. I know some people take issue with swearing on YouTube, but sometimes swearing is the best possible answer to a question. And this book is just that. I'm not going to get into all the stories. I'm just going to talk about a handful of my favorites. Like, the book opens with Plane Geometry, and it's about a dude and his wife. Their relationship isn't the greatest, and he ends up finding, I believe, his great-grandfather's journals. And his great-grandfather was this sort of like adventurous type, and he was always out, always like globe-trotting, looking for the next exciting thing. And he comes across somebody throughout his travels that shows him how to fold paper in such a way that when you do, the paper itself disappears. And so the guy, the dude in the story, he's reading this and he tries it out with the paper and it works. And him and his wife, like I said, they're not doing the greatest, but they're still sexually active. And the story concludes with them having sex. And as they're having sex, he figures out how to fold up her body in the same way that you fold the paper. And he realizes that as he's folding her body, as they're having sex, that she is disappearing. And just as she kind of puts together what's happening and she asks, like, what the fuck is going on? She vanishes. And the only thing left in the room is like the echo of her question. And she's just gone. So I thought when that story opened this book up, I thought I sort of kind of had like a handle on it. I figured that these stories would be, I heard this book was messed up, but I figured that it would be more messed up in a more palatable sense. And then Homemade kicks in, which is the second story. And oh my God. So it's about this dude, he's 15, and he's really desperate to have sex, and his buddy is going to hook him up with this chick by the name of Lulu Smith, who is sort of like the local whore, who will like flash him, do whatever she wants, let him do anything he wants for like, I can't remember if it was for money or not, but either way, this Lulu Smith chick is fast and easy, and he's really excited at this prospect because he's 15 and he still hasn't had sex. And that's predominantly what the story's about. And I'm like, whatever, that's cool. And usually stories about sex I find kind of tiring, but this one was holding my attention. And then the story concludes with him and his 10-year-old sister having sex. And his 10-year-old sister is okay with it because when he's attempting to get inside of her, she points out that he's putting it in the wrong place. And she says, this is where it's supposed to go. And he's so proud of the fact that he's getting to have sex that he wants the whole world to see it. That's actually one of the lines at the end of the story. He wants everyone to see him finally having sex, even if it might be with his 10-year-old sister, Connie. And then, of course, he ejaculates inside of her, and this causes her to cry, and she says the line, "Oh my God, you've wet inside of me." And the story concludes with him discovering that his first sexual escapade with a 10-year-old was down and dirty and disgusting and humiliating. And he realizes that he likes all of those things when it comes to him having sex. And so the story concludes with his 10-year-old sister crying because he wet inside of her, even though she's not crying because she was sexually assaulted. See, that's the thing. Despite the fact that she's 10, and even for that matter, despite the fact that he's 15, they're both minors. She's like a child. They're both consenting. And I don't even know what to make of that. So from Plane Geometry to Homemade, this book had just done like a complete 180. And I wasn't sure what to make of this book anymore. I mean, even like Last Day of Summer tells the story of a handful of people hanging out in like this summer house. And this one girl shows up because she's supposed to look after the other girl's younger son, I believe. And she's really overweight. And she's really cool, and her and, oh God, I can't remember any of the characters' names. She starts to hang out with him. They're hanging out all the time. They're talking a lot. And it's a really cute story, just about like younger, sort of more like emotionally isolated people finding a connection with each other in this really sort of like rural setting and almost like a cottage type setting. And how it's showing how everybody's able to relate and everybody's able to get along. And so again, there I was thrown for another loop, because coming off of like Homemade, with as absolutely revolting as that story was, this story's kind of cute. And then the end happens, where the overweight chick, the dude, and the little kid that she was tasked, that she was employed with looking after, decide to take the boat out on the river that's behind their home, only to have it capsize due to her weight. And the kid and her absolutely go missing, and we're led to believe that they drowned, even though their fates are technically left unknown. So there it is again. This book has completely hammered me. I thought this story was going to be nice. I thought this story was going to be kind of some sort of reprieve from the incestuous, disgusting shit that happened prior. And yeah, I guess it was, but then again, 2 out of the 3 people die at the end. And then what else? Oh, Jesus Christ, butterflies. So, oh, dude. So it's about this guy who has no chin, who sort of, because it's like he has, and he's pressed in like this, he has sort of what he considers to be a distrusting face, so he doesn't have any friends. And what happens is at the start of the story, he's walking from A to B, and he comes across this sort of like creek side that's next to this industrial part of town, and he finds the body of a little girl, and he phones the police and gets the ball rolling, and they come and find the body. And then one of the detectives asks if he would meet with the girl's parents, because they want to meet the person that found their daughter's body. They want to say thank you so they can bury her, blah, blah, blah. And this guy doesn't have a lot of money, of course. He doesn't live in the best part of town. And so he has to walk to the police station. So he leaves, and then he meets a little girl, I believe her name is Jane, along the way. And she's like really impressed with him, and he's cool with it or whatever. So he lets her come with him. And immediately it kind of clicks in. I'm like, oh fuck, he killed the other girl. And now he's going to kill this little girl. And that's exactly what happens, is he walks her off into like a dead and desolate industrialized part of town, where they come across a gang, and I think it's an actual gang, like a named gang of some sense, of teenage boys who are about to set a cat on fire. And I'm thinking to myself, this book is just fucked. Wow, there's that word again, you know? And yeah, so he's walking her out there, and she's already getting nervous. Like, she's like, I want to go back home. Where's my mom and dad? Where's my mom and dad? And he's gripping her hand so tight, because you know what he intends to do to her. And he walks past this like gang of boys who are about to set this cat on fire, and it's like, wow, the world that these characters exist in is just absolutely abhorrent. And yeah, he takes her up into this deep industrialized part where they're completely alone, and he doesn't rape her or anything, but he uses the idea of snuffing out her life as a reason to masturbate and ejaculate. And when he is ejaculating, the story tells us that he's ejaculating for all of the pain and all of the suffering and everything that is, it's just pouring out of him onto this little girl because of everything he's had to tolerate in life. And he kills her, and he dumps her body in the river again, and where, you know, he found the other body, and then he just walks off to the police station to go and talk to the parents of the other little girl who he most likely performed a sex act in front of and then killed too. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this book is just beyond repair. Ian McEwan's a genius, though, because he has a way of writing these stories in such a familiar sense. Like, despite how absolutely objectionable, the subject matter is, it's written in such a way that it's very disarming, very engaging, very easy to read, you know? And then there's Conversations with a Cupboard Man. That's possibly like one of the saddest short stories I've ever read. And it's about a guy whose mom, who wouldn't allow him to grow into adulthood. She kept him as a baby right up until his teen years, when she abandons him for her boyfriend or husband or whatever, and she takes off and leaves him there. And he says at the story, like, you may notice, like at the start of the story, like, you may notice that I'm sitting here in front of you and I look like a man and I'm acting like a man. But because of the way my mother raised me, like an eternal infant. The fact that I have to stand here and like maintain this adult type posture and so on and so forth, it's very difficult for me because I just want to sort of like go fetal because I am still a baby inside of my head. And he ends up getting a job at this, I can't remember what it is, if it's a bakery or some shit, and there's this disgusting piece of shit that works there. He's got like, they call him Puss Face. He calls him Puss Face because the guy's really cruel to him. And he's got like really bad acne, and he's kind of gross and dirty. And he locks the protagonist of the story into an oven for a while, and it singes him and everything because the oven was on. But he discovers that while he was inside of the oven, he actually likes the sort of smallness of it all. He likes how it's like he's being back in the womb because he likes how confined it is. And so to get the dude back, he throws a bunch of hot oil on him, destroys him, and then he ends up going to prison, and he really likes it in prison because the cell is small, he's off on his own, he's able to keep to himself. And when he's released from prison, he gets a job at a factory, and he likes the job at the factory again because he can be by himself, because he finds it hard to relate to people. But the majority of his time at home in his dingy little apartment, he spends it inside of one of the cupboards because he just wants to return to the womb, because he's always low-key searching for his mom, despite the fact that she's long since abandoned him. He's gone back to the house where he grew up, but another family lives there now, and he's always thinking about how he just wants to be inside of his mom again because of the trauma she inflicted on him. And I thought Conversations with a Cupboard Man, like I said, was just about one of the saddest stories I've ever read in my entire life. But man, was it affecting and memorable too. So this book is absolutely killer. I'm not going to talk about any other books. I didn't realize that this is almost 12 minutes. Ian McEwan has a gift. If you read any of his books, definitely read this and then read The Cement Garden. Like, they're like so far my two favorites by him. I've done a review of The Cement Garden. If I think of it, I'll put it in the description, but seeing as how this video most likely won't see the light of day for about a year, I'm most likely going to forget, and I apologize for that. If anybody notices that I haven't put it in the description, just mention it in the comments, and I'll toss it in then. But yeah, this book was amazing. It's so disturbing. It is so fucked up, and it's unrelenting in how bad these stories can get. So expect that going in. But then at the same time, it is also one of the most memorable books I've ever read. So that's it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for almost 13 minutes while I discussed Ian McEwan's debut novel from 1975. Like always, if you like this review or you love this book, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, please don't forget that the world is a hell of a lot better because you are in it. And no matter whatever it is that you're going through, it's going to get better. So just don't let go. You are amazing, and never forget that. Fuck off. Right in my eye. Like, why do mosquitoes always go for my eyes? That's it. Have a good night.